Welcome to Cut to the Chase, where we talk about compelling legal, regulatory, and public interest information and news. Your host is Gregg Goldfarb, an attorney, entrepreneur, investor, and activist.
All right, folks, time for our favorite podcast, Cut to the Chase. I brought my regular contributor on all topics insurance, Jonathan Singer from Rolf's Insurance and the office of Jonathan Singer. Basically, they do all types of insurance. But one of the interesting things about life and insurance is that every once in a while, there's a new thing to insure. And I'm looking in the paper today. I'm seeing that Clorox was, breached, not bleached, but breached, cybersecurity. And I mean, Jonathan and I were going through a whole host of, before we started today, a whole host of other companies and industries that have had breaches. And we're talking about big companies that have spent tons of money on security, cybersecurity, and they're still getting hacked or whatever. We're talking healthcare, municipalities, Target, Coca-Cola, Equifax, the whole 9 yards. Now the SEC is having a rule that starts in December, from what I understand, that if you are a publicly traded company and you get hacked, you have to produce all this information and notify, which makes sense. Anyway, John, that's my little intro. Cyber, all right, so everybody's getting hacked. What can you do? Security. And I'm bringing you on because, you're like the last leg of protection. So let's talk about the cybersecurity, cyber threats, what's going on, and what do you do in the world of insurance to help businesses?
Well, thank you, Greg, for having me on. Cut to the chase. I haven't been on here in a while, so it is a pleasure and an honor to be with you. First, full disclosure, I am not a cyber liability insurance expert necessarily, nor am I a forensics expert when it comes to trying to determine cyber losses or cyber threats. However, one of the products that we do sell in the industry is called cyber liability insurance. Cyber liability insurance has been around, believe it or not, since the 90s. The product has evolved as the threats have evolved. So, it used to be, oh God, I'm trying to think of, various triggers and things like that. But it used to be everything from, what were those, the cookies?
Yeah.
We used to be worried about cookies. We used to be worried about shareware. We used to be worried about pretty much whatever was out there. We still didn't know a lot. This is the 90s. You have computers and automation and everything evolving. And we've gotten to this point where we have all kinds of cyber threats. One of the biggest cyber threats in 2022 is phishing, okay? And that's not anything malicious. It's just these are programs that are running, and unfortunately, we just have a wild west out there on the interwebs, so to speak, okay? Now, how do insurance companies help you shift the potential exposure of a cyber loss to the insurance company's pocket? Okay, I'll give you a great example, and I digress a little bit, Greg. Keep me on track if I'm straying a little bit. But I'm mentioning some of these things because it's an evolving threat. That's what I'll say right now. And the insurance companies are trying to get wise enough to be able to help with the customers meet those threats. So whether you're Target, whether you're Clorox, and they're still getting hacked, they're having to do stuff practically every day, security patches, all kinds of things. And this is part of the infrastructure that they have to maintain in order to protect their digital assets, because the digital assets are extremely valuable and probably very understated. You're not thinking about that stuff when, for instance, you're selling boats, or you're selling Clorox, or you're selling pharmaceuticals, But unfortunately, they look for easy targets, sometimes more complicated targets. And unfortunately, that's going to be with us for a while. I don't see any changes except just the evolution of the threats that we have to be prepared for.
Yeah. So let's say you're a small bit, and really this topic is designed for the smaller businesses that,
Small,
you
right?
know, listen, you get security, you get an IT guy, you get your firewall, whatever it is that you're putting up there, you're crossing your finger, but there's no guarantee. Like the security people are not telling you, hey, there's no guarantee. They're doing the best that they can for you. You don't even know if some of these security companies, they might be the ones behind these breaches or whatever. But be that as it may, let's say you're a small business person, and you're worried, or you're not worried. Maybe you're not worried. Should you be worried? I mean, is
It's
this
a good,
product just for certain types of industries, or are we
no.
talking across the board?
I think everybody should be worried, not worried like the sky is falling, but just part of the cost of doing business. Because one of the most important things as we are in a digital world and we're doing commerce in a digital world and everything else, it seems like under the sun, you want to protect your digital assets. And obviously one of the main reasons, let's say you're a law firm, okay, or you're a doctor's office, small doctor's office, and you get hacked somehow. There's one email somebody manages to open, and they thought it was an innocent enough email, and it ended up infecting the whole system. Okay, and turns out that you find out, and this is applicable to a small business. I actually had a claim with a dentist a few years ago, and they had a ransomware attack. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard about ransomware attacks and what you have to do to be able to make them go away. And that's probably my biggest worry with small businesses, because they're going to get, unfortunately, extorted to be able to get their data back in a ransomware attack, for instance, where you're dealing with somebody on the other side of the world and there's not much recourse for you. Okay. So when you don't have something like cyber liability insurance in place, you're going to be on the hook for those costs. And what does a small business do? I mean, as I said, I had a dentist office that got ransomware, and fortunately, the insurance company paid the claim. But it was a ton of damage, and a ton of damage to their digital infrastructure they had to rebuild. And like you're saying, Greg, when the minute you buy a computer from the big box store or whatever, you open it up and you say, okay, I'm an attorney, I'm a doctor, an engineer, I'm what small business, I sell, plumbing fixtures, whatever. I want to make sure my computer is compliant. So I'm not going to add any apps or any garbage on my computer. I want to make sure it's fully compliant from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
The problem is there's no specific standard in place. There's no, as far as I know, there's good practices, there's best practices. And the insurance companies who are writing these policies are trying to help small employers employ these practices. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so when it comes to the small business, an average policy might cost between $500 and $1,000 for a small business. Okay, and that could go a long way, because the first thing is you get a ransomware attack, God forbid, you have the insurance company that pretty much handles the whole thing for you, the negotiation and everything else.
Yeah. Wow.
One thing I would mention, by the way, I don't know if this is effective, and I don't know if this is always necessary. However, when you do have a cyber attack, okay, in your office, you can report it to the police as a burglary, especially if your data has been stolen, like a ransomware attack. You want to make that police report because the insurance company needs to be notified, and you want to have an audit trail for them. Because when they're trying to do their forensics to determine ultimately what the root cause of the data loss was, they have to do it very meticulously. So you want to make sure that your ducks are in a row as well. So it's kind of a vague area, and if I said businesses should be concerned, I would just be concerned like anything else. You want to protect your human assets, so you buy workers' comp coverage. You want to protect your equipment, so you protect those assets. You protect your digital assets with cyber liability insurance.
All right. So cyber liability, you've talked about the ransomware. And to me, the fact that the insurance company would actually take over as, you know, the negotiations, that in and of itself would be a major relief. I mean, it happened to me and I was just like, you know, I skated clean. I didn't have to pay anything or whatever, but you know, it was just a complete nightmare for a week. And I mean, if I would have known, you know, if you would roll this back 2 years ago, if I would have known that I could have gotten somebody else to deal with this, and I would imagine that the insurance companies probably are much more proficient at negotiating than somebody who's handling this for the first time, freaking out, right? You know, and that's amazing. But all right, aside from the cyber attack, what other types of cyber security risks are out there aside from like getting the ransom and all that?
I mean, it depends at what level and how you're going to respond to the threat. So there's a variety of different threats that can come to you in the form of first-party liability and third-party liability. Okay, and what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. This is probably a better way to illustrate it because I don't try to get technical and I don't want to overwhelm anybody here. But let's just say you're a law firm, okay, or real estate firm, and you grow exponentially, but then you find out that you need to have your servers hosted somewhere else, okay? So your servers are in another room at another facility that you've contracted with to secure your data, okay? Even though you have access to all of your data, it's in the cloud, you know, you have an outside vendor that's protecting your data. Now, let's say the attack happened at the vendor site, at the vendor level. Well, then it becomes a real issue because it's not just you getting attacked, but it could be potentially many other companies getting attacked as well. So it really just depends. I mean, the days of, yes, you can get attacked if you're just a small proprietor, sole proprietor, and you have 2 laptops for the business, and you open up a questionable email, or anything else for that matter you're accessing, or perhaps you get a threat by using Zoom. Somehow they use the camera features to disable things. There's a lot of different types of things. The main thing I would just impress upon anybody is that because, not just because of HIPAA, but because of the idea of privacy, personal identifiable information, PII, can exist in anybody's database. And because of that, in my opinion, it's a digital asset, okay? Because you're charged with protecting those digital assets. And if, God forbid, you get attacked and that data gets out somewhere, or there's a risk of it getting out there, you're responsible for credit monitoring and everything else. The insurance company, though, if you had a policy, they handle all of that, and they handle the protocol to be able to respond to the loss, okay? That's an example I'm trying to give you with regard to small businesses. For larger businesses, I was talking about the law firm. There is a recent spate of attacks, especially on law firms, over the last 6 months. There was a chunk of them all over South Florida. I'm not going to name who, but basically the FBI was involved. It was a big deal. And nobody really knew anything until they got the demands for, say, $1 million in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And it's one of these threats that we've had to evolve. I mean, just getting an antivirus program is not going to do it for you. And I think the other thing, by the way, if you're a small business, you're always on your phone. A lot of these attacks can originate from your phone usage, especially if you're doing things like syncing back and forth to your computer system or your servers.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of measures that you can take, but I think for the not too much money, if you're interested in protecting your digital assets, you want to make sure you have cyber liability coverage, just like as I said. So the small businesses, though, how much do you worry? I don't know, because it really depends. If you're a small business, chances are you have a brick and mortar business, but you also may have, let's say you're a cake baker, okay, and you do internet orders. Well, You want to make sure that if you have a payment vendor, that they're compliant, and there's a lot of things that you want to check out before you just assume, okay, I'm just going to use, say, PayPal, even though they may be reputable and everything. If you're going to do digital transactions, that carries the weight of exposure of your client. So you want to make sure that you do diligence and make sure that you try to address your vulnerabilities.
All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of the insurance product. All right, so somebody's listening to this, they're like, yeah, you know what, I better buy something before I get caught up in this. That was a lawyer, a law firm. I didn't think anything could really happen. What could really happen? Well, things can happen, and you got your client's information. You don't want that sitting out there in public or whatever. Your whole law practice might go down the toilet. So, all right, I want to buy a product. I want to buy this product. Is this a standalone product? Is this like a rider? Is this attached to your business liability? Is my first question. And then my second question, like, what are the exclusions? Are you guys, is the insurance world excluding so many things that it's not even worth it? I might as well just deal with it myself.
Because the policy essentially changes, it seems like from year to year, as they have to address the threats and how they're going to pay things out and under what conditions they're going to pay out according to the terms and conditions of the policy. Yeah, the insurance company can interpret how they're going to activate coverage. There's no question about it. And these policies, mainly, a lot of people buy them just to feel good about, God forbid, if they have a ransomware attack, okay? So that they have something to be able to respond to it. But as far as, certain coverage triggers, because that's kind of what we're talking about, it really can be anything. It could be, I'm a small business. I think I was hacked. My computer is doing weird things, okay? Or I'm a small bit, and what the insurance company will do is help you through the claim, and they'll make a determination as to where the threat, as best as possible, came from. And they do have forensics experts that will help you. They didn't have this in the beginning when they had the original product out. The product has evolved to have more loss controls, and that clients have loss controls in place, because it's like anything. If you have workers' comp insurance, one of the easy things to do, and by the way, you get a discount, is to have take advantage of the workplace safety credit. Okay, so that you have an OSHA approved workplace safety program. Well, no different. Your digital assets, you want to have something in place where you're proactive. Okay, you don't want to have to be in a reactive situation, having to cough up, whatever in Bitcoin. So it could be anything from opening the email and they determine that it was an attack on the network. Okay, or let's say it was one of these trusted relationships. Let's just say you hire a computer person and somehow they're not even compliant, and maybe they're even nefarious, God forbid. Okay, you're trusting them with your data. So anybody that touches your data, or anything that touches your data, can be a cyber threat. I mean, not just phishing, external remote services, exploit public-facing vulnerabilities, like I mentioned, the healthcare industry or Broward County, or any of these entities. They have complex issues that they have to face every day that I couldn't even explain to you. But as I said, on a small business level, it's just, it gives you some peace of mind that you have a mechanism to be able to respond to cyber threats. Are you going to be able to respond to everything? Not necessarily. Hopefully you will. Hopefully the insurance products will evolve enough where they don't have to have so many limitations and exclusions. But I will tell you that the coverages have evolved, but that includes limitations and exclusions, okay?
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that they're not going to cover you. It just means that there are certain conditions. So let's just say, I mentioned that example before, putting your server in a room somewhere, hosted off-site, okay? They might have a sublimit for how much they're actually going to pay out if the attack happened on another side, a third party. Okay, And that's where third-party liability may come into play, where the insurance company is going to actually go after the third party's insurance,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a recovery of some kind. So I digress. The main thing is I think it's gotten so important over the last couple of years. One of the biggest reasons is we've gone to a remote work environment.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many people I know work remotely, and they're just on their home computer, and they're still on their AOL email, and they haven't really given much thought to it. They just, kind of say, well, it is what it is. I have a virus scan program and CCleaner, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
The question is, are you? So it may be worth it to meet with, if you're doing business, it's worth it to meet with somebody who can address any IT concerns or bring up any IT concerns that they might have, because this is your business after all. Okay. Yeah. So you want to protect your digital assets. And I really want to impress that upon you, that term digital assets, because that's what they are.
All right. So let's talk about last topic. Let's say you don't have a small business. All right. But you're worried anyway that you're going to get cyber attacked. Is there insurance products out there to cover those situations?
You mean if you're like just a private homeowner and you're...
Yeah, or let's just say you're like you write novels, or you're sort of on your own, sole proprietor, not even really sole proprietor, just you're doing stuff on the internet, and you're worried. You're elderly, you're retired, you don't really even know how to secure your assets, and you're worried.
Right. And then from that starting point, that's a great example. Thank you for bringing that up, because if you're somebody who is maybe sight challenged, visually impaired, you have hearing issues, any number of things, those can also be vulnerabilities, unfortunately, that hackers may exploit. Okay. Yeah. So you might have some what I'm trying to think of the word, but some assistance features to help you navigate on the web, and they build all of that into their programs. However, you can have a lot of issues. If you're young, if you're elderly, the biggest thing to remember is just do not give out under any circumstances unless you know the site and you're familiar with it. Don't give out any of your personal identifiable information. And that includes, unless you're dealing with like an Amazon order, or you're dealing with something reputable that that you can disclose your information. However, I would just be very careful about certain emails that you open, anything that you don't recognize. For somebody who's just at home, they're a hobbyist, do they have interests, they go on YouTube, they're just worried about navigating the web. They use it for just email and watching YouTube videos, okay? That's their whole deal on their computer, and they just want to keep it simple. Should they be worried about cyber liability? I mean, if they have customers, yes. If they're not doing business on on the web, and let's just say they're a novelist and they want to protect their digital assets, okay? You may want to have a portable hard drive that you save it on. You may want to upload a copy in the cloud. It just depends. I'm not sure what the standard should be for somebody writing a book. As I said, if you're writing a book, you probably want to protect your intellectual property a few different ways. You may want to copyright your stuff. There's a lot of things. But then the question is when you get back to it, like Sony a few years ago got hacked. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And I think that was around the time Seth Rogen had that movie out with James Franco, if I remember. And, a lot of stuff leaked on the web. I don't know how much Sony could do about it. They tried to repair their image. A lot of it has to do with reputation, rehabilitation, so to speak. And that's another thing these insurance products try to do, help you ensure your reputation. Because I mentioned a law firm. A law firm, a big firm in Miami, for instance, they get hacked, but somehow it gets out in the public that they were hacked. How do you deal with that PR nightmare?
Yeah.
Right? So the insurance company is there also to help assist with that as well in the event of a claim. But there's all kinds of threats, no matter the age. I mean, if you're a child, obviously you want to have adult monitoring, and maybe if you're 82 years old, you may want to have some monitoring too. Maybe you need a 7-year-old kid to help you. I just don't know. I remember. Listen, I grew up with AOL, and it was just a simple messaging app. And if I had that back today, it would be great because it was simple. Things have gotten a little more complex, and we have a lot of great innovations, but with those innovations obviously come risks and exposures. So I digress a little bit. I apologize for that. It's one of these topics that I'm going to continue to evolve in my knowledge. And it's a product that, I suspect in 6 months, they're going to be talking to me about some other coverage provision that they're either able to enhance or they're going to limit.
Yeah.
Based on the claim data. And that's another thing too. Even though these policies have been around for a while, the claim data, I don't believe they've been able to quantify enough the claim data, because these threats are evolving so quick that they have to be able to respond. And when they respond, part of that is rate filings and assessing their losses and everything else, or potential losses, or reserving for potential losses. So whether you're that small business person or you're a big company, it's a very large exposure for the insurance company also, because they don't always know what they're getting into.
That's right.
And that's the same for the consumer. I mean, or just an average user on a computer. It's one of these constant evolving things. I mean, I never thought, I couldn't imagine that we were doing this today. Maybe I could, I don't know, but technology is amazing. Yes, there are risks with it, but I'd like to think that we're staying ahead.
Yeah,
I hope we're staying ahead.
All right, I think that, you know what, with all this AOL talk, all I can tell you is you got mail. No, I'm kidding. All right, I think that pretty much covers what is an evolving and important topic. And I think that people, you know what, if you want to go out there and try to protect your assets, liability, insurance is a real good thing in my estimation. So John, thank you for coming on today and talking about this. I will bring you back in 6 months. Who knows, maybe like artificial intelligence, Chat GPT will become the next thing that we talk about.
And insurance companies are already looking at the Chat GPT and the potential for exposure and everything else. So they are worried about that. But look, it may be another 40 years or maybe 4 years that they evolve.
Yeah.
Who knows? By the way, I just want to mention, yes, I am here for all of your property and casualty needs. And I mentioned cyber insurance is available as a single product, as a standalone product. Sometimes you can get the coverage through your commercial package policy, but it's usually very limited. So if your agent tells you you have cyber liability coverage, you better read the terms and conditions, because usually they'll give you a small sub limit, which will never address a big attack, for instance. So, or more sophisticated things. So just check with your agent and make sure that they have that product available for you, the standalone version, because it is really worth the cost. Because $1,000 a year versus $1 million in Bitcoin, what would you vote on? Take a vote. I mean, so anyway, Greg, it was a pleasure to be here.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of Cut to the Chase. Our regular insurance contributor savant, Jonathan Singer from Rolf's Insurance. I'll drop his information. He does everything, including these standalone products for cybersecurity breaches, which I'm going to tell you, folks, if you want to help your sleep at night, buy this product. And that's my little wellness tip for the day. All right. So, John, I'll be seeing you shortly. All right. You stay warm there in Miami. All right.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm right here. I'm on the beach. Can you tell?
I can tell.
I didn't even know that we had mountains in Miami.
Yeah.
But
well, climate change, that's what it is. It's changing. All right. All right, folks. John, we'll speak soon. All right. That's it. You guys know the drill. Subscribe, rate, and review. Any questions? If you got insurance questions, please, in the comments, ask it, and I'll, have John come on and answer them for you. All right? How about that? Okay.
That's all for this episode of Cut to the Chase. But before you go, will you open up your podcast app and give us a 5-star review? You can also leave a comment about what you liked most or other topics you'd like us to cover. And please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming shows. Thanks, everybody. Be safe out there.